Welcome to another Reaper blog video. Today we're talking about Realphones from Dsoniq. It's some software to make your headphone mixes better. So this is Realphones from Dsoniq. There will be links in the description to where you can find out more about this and where you can download it. And before we get started on this, I do have to say that they're not paying me to talk about this, but they did send this product to me for free in exchange for doing a video, but they haven't paid me any money to talk about it, and they're not seeing this video before it goes live. So yeah, so now you know that's my bias with this product. So Realphones does a few different things. The first is correction for headphone frequency imbalances. They have a bunch of different headphone models that you can select to match your headphones and then kind of flatten the frequency response with that. They recommend actually not 100% full correction, but 75% is what they recommend. And you can bring it all the way down to off. And we can bypass the correction with the button here. Headphone correction, that's the first thing it can do. The second function of the Realphones plugin is speaker and room ambience simulation. So right now this is set on big fat bottom, which is big, huge studio speakers in a room. And there's a few different other speakers here. So flat studio 1, real studio 1, stereo field, mix elements, spectrum, low resolution, typical phones, pleasure listening. So a bunch of different speakers here. And then we can even pop out this with more options here. The default, what they recommend for headphone correction is the big fat bottom mode. Right now we're actually in the easy mode where a lot of the parameters are hidden by default. We've got the environment control, which controls the room ambience. So when you're in headphones, there's no ambience, there's no crosstalk or anything like that. And so this is kind of like a subtle built-in reverb to help it feel like you're listening to speakers in a room rather than speakers less than an inch away from your eardrums. Another thing that it can do is monitor controlling. So you can solo the mids and the sides. You can filter and only listen to the lows. If we come out of easy mode, we can see even more settings here. Mid, side, just the left, just the right. We can swap the left and right. We can sum to mono. We can also polarity invert one side. Low pass filter, a band pass filter, and a high pass filter. And with these filters, we can choose either to solo or mute. And now that we're out of advanced mode, there's even more controls for every other section of this. We also have angle control for those virtual speakers. The default is 60%, which is kind of the standard angle that studio monitors are in a professional studio or even a home studio. There's supposed to be a 60-degree angle to your ears. And so there's a function built into this that simulates that rather than the speakers being directly into your ears, which is unnatural, being 180 degrees away from each other. Having them 60% feels a little more natural, like you're listening to speakers. And then the last thing is that there's different snapshots here on the left that go through different scenarios here. These are all the built-in ones, but you can also make your own. And they just change the different parameters. They're like presets, and there are presets here as well. I'm pretty sure that the preset system is a little bit older than the snapshot system. You can use either one, but the snapshots are going to be a little quicker to load the different settings, and you can customize your own settings. So you can go to new set, you can rename it, you can load in the factory preset set here, and then just tweak things to your preferred settings. You know, all the different management options that you would expect. And then finally, because this is an EQ, it needs some headroom to work with. So there on the right side, there's a gain control. If you go into clipping, there's this button here will automatically drop the volume down to where it's not clipping. And there's a final limiter at the end. As you can probably tell, pretty powerful piece of software here. Where in the chain do you put this? You put this last in your monitoring chain or on your master track. You want this after your Rickwell limiter. It has the functions built in to bypass on mixdown. So when you render this project, you won't actually hear the effect of this on your final mix. This is going to influence your mix, but you don't want this EQ applied to your speakers for everyone else. All right, so trying to figure out how to demo something like this, and I'm not sure if I've really got a great way of demoing this, but here's what I've got. I've got a project here with a full multi-track. I've done some really basic mixing here, mostly levels, but there's a couple EQs in here and a couple compressors just kind of to manage the dynamics slightly. I have a few snapshots here that I did yesterday where I mixed and balanced things in a way that sounded right for each device. So I've got my speakers, which are Focal CMS 50s with a Yamaha subwoofer. I'm at a kind of preset volume here, and so when I play this back, it sounds balanced to me. Then I have an original set of AKG K240 Studio. I've changed the cable, but everything else about them is stock. So I did one mix with dulls without the correction software, and then with Realphones. I did another mix with my HD 650s from Sennheiser, and again, mix in these headphones till they sounded balanced. Then another one with the Realphones software. And then finally, I did another 2 mixes with the Apple EarPods. I shouldn't say mixes. They're not mixes. They're just balances. I put the faders down. I pushed them up until it sounded like a good balance on each of these sets, one with just the headphones and one with the software. I didn't spend very long on those, 1 minute or so for each setup, just balances. So here is the first one with the speaker mix. Same thing, but with the AKG K240 Studio headphones. Okay, so a little bit quieter. I feel like I've mixed the bass a little bit lower in that. And now here's the K240 Studio headphones with the Realphones correction software. So much closer to the speaker balance here. And both times as I was doing that mix, I was mixing to where they sounded balanced. And so kind of in theory, they're going to be pretty close. I'm still using my own personal preference in each case, but it's being influenced by what I'm hearing, right? So it's closer with the Realphone software to my speaker mix. Moving on to the Sennheiser 650s. Doing the exact same thing. So in this case, I've got the bass a little bit higher than I would like. It sounds a little bit darker overall, and the vocals are pushed down. It makes me think that the vocals are accentuated naturally by these headphones, and there's not a lot of bass. And I know that about those headphones. There isn't a lot of bass in those headphones. All right, so here it is with the Sennheiser 650s and the Realphones software. That's pretty well balanced, possibly even better than my original speaker mix. All right, let's move on to the Apple EarPods. And by the way, I should mention, you're not seeing this plugin active right now because we don't want to listen to that through speakers. You want to only use this headphone correction software in your headphones. So when you switch from headphones to speakers, you got to remember to turn it off. All right, moving on to the Apple EarPods. Here's what I thought was a balanced mix while wearing those headphones. One of the things you immediately notice is that I mixed it much quieter, and that's because I didn't want to touch the headphone volume. These headphones are much smaller than the other headphones. They take less power to drive them to the same volume, and because they're right inside your ear, they don't need to be as loud as the other headphones. So that's why it's quieter. It's also less balanced. It's much darker and muddier and kind of gross sounding. Here it is with the Realphones software correcting their EQ curve. Still a few dB down, but that's because of the headphone amp, not not because of the software or anything like that. It's a better mix for sure, but I would still definitely prefer like the Sennheiser headphones with the Realphone software to get a better mix the first try. So let's jump back to the speaker mix one more time. And so that's still sounding really balanced to me. I can hear all the instruments individually, and it's working right in this room. All right, so I'm going to turn on the software, and I'm going to turn off the correction. We're just going to go through some of the other settings here. Let's go through the monitoring control here. One of the interesting things here with the left and right is that it's not a solo left or right. There's some crosstalk because in real life, your left and right ears are both picking up sound from each speaker. So if you only play something out of the left speaker, you're still hearing it in both ears, and the software is trying to reproduce that. So if I solo the left, it is mostly on the left, but you can see in the meters that it is coming through both speakers. And here is that cool solo function for the different frequency bands. So pretty impressive software. I'm not really used to working with software like this, but even with this simple demo, I think it has proven to me that it is pretty effective. If you have to work on headphones, I think some software like this, and there are some others on the market, are worth checking out. See if you can get a better result than with your headphones alone. Something that confused me on the first install of this was not having any of the correction profiles in here. I was expecting, just to have the entire list available. But what they do is only have generic headphones and closed and open back headphones as the profiles. And when you go to your license, you can have, you have to install each one. So when you go to the website and log in, you've got your headphone profile. So you click on Add a Profile, and you can select from a pretty big list of headphones in here. Some common ones like the ATH M50s; those are common for mixing. All the Bayer Dynamic headphones, like the 990 Pro, even Bose headphones, the Blue headphones, the Focal headphones are there. Expensive headphones, cheap headphones, you can find most of them in there. There's also a option to, if you're already using SonarWorks and you want to use their headphone profiles, there's kind of like a translation profile you can put in here for SonarWorks and Tone Boosters Morphit. You can recalibrate and actually use both at the same time. There is also the Realphones system-wide app. This was not working very well on my system. What you would do is if you have a media player going, you would set your system output to Realphones system-wide. And then in here in Realphones, you would go to your audio settings and you would choose which audio device you go out to. I didn't have great luck with this. It was a little choppy, and at first I had a hard time getting it to the right sample rate. Everything on my system is 48K. I actually had to go into audio MIDI setup and force it to from 44.1 to 48K. That resolved a pitch shift issue I was having. Still, it was choppy, and it could maybe just be that it's not optimized for these new Macs. I didn't have a chance to test it on Windows yet, but that option should be there. So you can use this to correct the main headphone output that you listen to all music or all sounds through with this. If it works well for your system, your mileage may vary. And that's it for this video. That's a look at the Realphones headphone correction software from Dsoniq. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Support the Reaper blog through Patreon. And visit reaperblog.net for a lot more tutorials.